Here. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about the shifting housing market because there is some changes that are now taking place within this housing market, and it's very noticeable within the home builders. Now, many of you know I work at a retail lumber yard. I do retail sales for a living, and I live in the Pacific Northwest. I have my fingers on the pulse of the industry when it comes to the timber industry, lumber industry, retail industry. There's really no corner of the lumber market that I can't see. And a couple of months ago, I noticed that things felt a little different within the market that I couldn't quite pinpoint. I couldn't put my finger quite on it. This says, man, there's something changing here within this market. But I could feel that there was some sort of shift that was happening, whether we were hitting the bottom or there was something that was about ready to occur. I thought to myself, things have been going this way for too long. Right? We have a down market, we have a low supply, we have low demand, we have all the issues that would normally look like a depression or very depressed market taking place, especially when you look at the demand for lumber coming from the home builders. Now, being in the industry, I get phone calls, I get a lot of questions, I get people who are coming to me saying, hey man, do you know what's going on? Do you have like some answers for all these particular questions? A lot of it has to do with tariffs, what's going to happen with lumber because of tariffs. A lot of it has to do with, the idea of the money printer go burr and the inflationary scenarios. And a lot of people have so much confusion and uncertainty and just lack of understanding of what's happening out there. This fear that is within them, that is really pronounced through the mainstream media, has pulled back on a lot of projects, a lot of like decision making. You're going to go and spend a bunch of money, and right now it's uncertain. You start pulling back and you start saying, hey man, I don't know if I really want to participate right now. Well, as time goes on, you end up with what I call project delaying fatigue, right? So like you are holding back on these projects that you want to do because of the uncertain times, don't know whether or not today is the day to pull the trigger, and you're just like, just living in that uncertainty, just like waiting in that limbo on whether or not you should actually, make that decision to go ahead and start pulling, start doing the project, go ahead and pull the trigger on it. Well, here's something that I find interesting is the more I understand the monetary policy is that if I believe what it is that I have been saying, and that the elevated inflation expectation raises the neutral interest rate, as that neutral interest rate rises ever closer to the Fed funds rate, it makes the economy less restricted. Well, that would be noticeable at some point within the retail market and within the new construction market within those home builders. Like if the economy is less restricted and then time goes on, that less restricted economy will begin to present itself inside of the numbers, inside of the demand for new homes, the demand for lumber, just the expansion operations that come from a less restricted economy. Now, most people are anticipating that coming in the future. Like they think, okay, at some point the Fed is going to cut rates and then the economy will become less restricted. But very few people take it into consideration that the elevated inflation expectation and the raising of that neutral interest rate has made the economy less restricted. Here it is, I'm noticing more of a demand coming for lumber. Not much, again, I'm working retail, so it's a little difficult to recognize whether or not it's an overall demand or whether or not it just happens to be our local area or if it just happens to be seasonal. Right? In any sense, I feel the increase in demand. Like it's not major, it's not dramatic, it's not overwhelming, and not by any sense of the imagination is it awesome. Right? But it is taking place. So last month, June 11th, we did a video just recently talking about this. I made a call saying, hey, I'm going to pull the trigger on this investment that I'm going to do. I do not suggest anybody else do it. I'm just telling you what it is that I plan on doing with this money. Right? Now, being in the industry that I am in, realizing that there was tight inventory, low prices, low demand, and that there's some feeling of shifting that is happening, and my understanding that the economy is becoming less restricted, even though nobody really sees it that way, except for the uneducated economist and the FOMC, right? However, believing that the economy is becoming less restricted, it would be noticeable within the home builders. Like if the home builders are starting to get exciting, if you start seeing them start to ramp up production, then most likely you are seeing the shift taking place within the housing market. We have had a dramatic slowdown for a while. Well, now we're starting to see the nationwide home builders like Lennar and D.R. Horton, their stocks are rising fast and dramatically. Well, that was one of the reasons why I took that position in Nail, right? Now, many of you know that Nail is a 3 times leveraged ETF. Do not buy this thing based off of this video. Do not buy Nail based off of this video. Go do your own research, do your own decision making. I pulled the trigger on this back on June 11th. Right? I dollar cost average just about every week since then. I have absolutely nailed it, no pun intended. Right? That stock went up 50% inside of 30 days. And when I go and I look at the home builders, I see their stock is moving dramatically. When I think about the demand that is coming for lumber, I can see that starting to increase. Again, that might just be local. It might just be seasonal. It might be nationwide, right? Understanding that I am in an industry in which that you are not going to see data presented, right? But the data will come out after the fact. Right? You will see the home prices moving up or the home building permit issuance moving up. You'll see all these indicators after the fact. But it's very difficult to show you within a link or anywhere else out there the anecdotal evidence that I am seeing and feeling firsthand. Talking with the contractors, talking with the other suppliers, talking with, just people within the industry itself. And I can feel that there is some sort of, either it was a bottoming or somewhat of a shift that was happening. Now, is it going to continue going into the future? Is it going to all of a sudden ramp up into this major, production that is going to happen within the housing industry? Like, I don't see that happening as of yet, but it very well could be leading into something like that. I mean, you think about it right now, if they were to lower interest rates, would that actually drop the Fed funds rate below neutral? Like, is neutral very close to the Fed funds rate as it is today? Michelle Bowman said that 6 months ago. Remember, Michelle Bowman's like one of the contenders for the Fed chair. And 6 months ago, she was saying that the stance of the Fed funds rate today is very close to the neutral stance. And again, that was 6 months ago. Has there been more or less? I would imagine there would be more. Do you would think that that would lower or raise the neutral interest rate? Most likely it would raise the neutral interest rate. Well, if it raises the neutral interest rate and becomes ever closer to the Fed funds rate, they are less restricted now than they were 6 months ago. This is one of the reasons why we're seeing the shift taking place. Yeah. I mean, again, you can follow whatever industries, you can follow whatever numbers you want. I follow the one that I am closest to. Right? The ones that I can actually see firsthand, boots on the ground, people I can call. Say, hey, man, how's production going? How's logging going? How's trucking going? How's this going? Whatever it is, I have people out there that I can talk to who are in this industry who can give me their first boots on the ground, firsthand point of view. Right? And with that, I thought to myself, man, things are definitely shifting. Is it shifting in a dramatic fashion? All of a sudden it's going to blow up? I don't necessarily feel that. But is the bottom in? Maybe. Right? I mean, I was able to feel confident in pulling the trigger on buying into a 3 times leveraged ETF, which nobody should ever do. Right? Not for any kind of length of time. That is not the way that is supposed to go down. But I felt pretty confident that I wouldn't lose money going in at the time that I did. I started buying in on June 11th. Here we are, much higher today, just 30 days later. And I really honestly believe that if the expectations of interest rates continue into the future, regardless of what the Fed does, right? If the belief that the interest rates are coming into the future, it will begin to lower the rates. And we are already witnessing this happening. I mean, you think about it, the 10-year Treasury is now less than it was 30 days ago, the day that I decided to pull the trigger on this. The mortgage rates have dropped, right? Not dramatically, but they have come down over the last 30 days. This is due to the Fed hasn't done anything. Remember, the Fed hasn't moved yet. right? But the expectations, the belief, and the market conditioning through the mainstream media and the words that they use has definitely presented the people out there with the idea that there is going to be interest rate cuts coming in very soon. And with that, they are acting ahead of time. You know something I find interesting? Let me see if I can turn my hotspot on here real quick for you guys, because I want to read from something. Oh, where is it? Mobile hotspot. There we go. Okay. I want to read from a little spot out of the Financial Times from Goolsbee. He said something that I thought was pretty interesting. Let me see if I can bring it up here on my tablet. Because he was talking about the current conditions that we are now facing. Oh shit, I can't. Okay, no, if there's a darn it, I got it blocked here. Oh, I don't have it signed in. Okay, so ultimately, Goolsbee was being interviewed by Financial Times, and in this interview, he was essentially saying that the Federal Reserve should not be using the expectations, something of this nature, the expectations to conduct monetary policy, or at least that's, at least that's the idea that he was putting behind it. And I thought to myself, that is not right. I mean, they have a whole idea of monetary policy called forward guidance. Right? The idea that the Federal Reserve shouldn't be using expectations to conduct monetary policy is completely delusional. Like, Goolsbee is like straight up lying when he says that. Right? Like, straight up, that's a straight up lie. I mean, or else they would not have a term called forward guidance. Right? Like, literally, this was invented 20 plus years ago by Ben Bernanke. So to believe that the Federal Reserve doesn't use expectations in order to conduct monetary policy is absolutely incorrect. I mean, there is two great speeches given by Philip Jefferson, who is a voting member of the FOMC, talking just specifically about that, how they use their words to guide the markets, how they guide monetary policy. They talk about monetary policy being conducted through their words and not one talk about interest rate adjustments. I mean, they do talk about the interest rate adjustments, but it's more about the impact that the market has from the belief of that coming. That's what he's talking about. So when Goolsbee comes out on this Financial Times article saying, well, the Fed shouldn't do that, they should be very reactionary, that is absolute garbage. That is not true. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Like, I mean, that is a straight up lie that he was saying. And I left a link down in the description, I believe, to the article if you happen to be, if there's a paywall paywall that you have to get through. But ultimately, that's what he was saying. All right. And so as I think about this, I'm like, man, that is just pushing even more of the uncertainty that is out there about the monetary policy, which is the way that the Federal Reserve truly wants the people to believe. They want to be uncertain. They want the people to be uncertain. Because if they have the people uncertain about the outcome, then their words have more impact. That's why you have many Fed officials coming out saying, oh, we need to cut immediately, cut a lot. Future Fed chairmen who aren't even part of the FOMC coming out saying, oh, I would cut a lot. I would cut immediately, You have all these people saying that, but then you got FOMC members saying, this is not appropriate to cut. Not at this time. Maybe if the data changes, but at this point, the way the data is showing it, that we need to maintain this course of elevated interest rates to combat the inflationary scenario. That's what a lot of them are arguing. Now, when I step back and I think about it, it was just like, you guys are doing this on purpose. You're saying stay, you're saying cut, and nobody knows what the hell is going on, because that creates the fear and uncertainty and doubt that the Federal Reserve is using. They use that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The more of a confirmation that you have of the Fed's monetary policy, they come out saying, we are definitely going to cut, but we just don't know by how much. That will definitely, almost definitely start to ease financial conditions, unless they add to it that we are doing this for emergency purposes. That would start tightening financial conditions. They can deliver the same cut with a different message and have two different outcomes. All right? That's important to understand. They can deliver a rate cut with two different messages and have two different outcomes. That's the point, right? That's the point of all this. That's the point of my channel, trying to share with you the credible threat theory so that you can recognize how it is that the Federal Reserve is truly conducting monetary policy now, because it's not a matter of interest rate adjustments. It's like right now, we have a condition within the markets, within the housing market, in which that I am seeing financial conditions being easier and reflecting inside of the home builders. You're seeing Lennar increase, D.H. Horton increase. That leverage ETF that I suggest nobody buy has almost not quite doubled since I made the call June 11th, in the middle of June. Right? Now, if it wasn't going down the way that I thought it was, then none of that would have taken place. Right? Like, I would have never been able to call that market out at the time that I did and see the dramatic rise as quickly as we have if it wasn't for the fact that I'm standing in the position I'm in. If I was anywhere else, if I was not working retail, if I was working construction, if I was doing something else, I wouldn't have been able to see it this way. Right? It's literally because of the retail position that I am at. Boots on the ground, getting phone calls, making phone calls, and having connections with people out there that is in every corner of this industry. That's what gave me the insight. And then literally it was a feeling that I had. I'm like, man, I think we have come close to the bottom. I'm not positive of it, but it certainly feels that way. Right? It wouldn't be observed. You can't observe it out there. It doesn't look like that from the number, from the interest rates, from all that other stuff. That doesn't feel right to say that it's going to be less restricted. But when you understand the monetary policy and the neutral interest rate rising, it all starts to make sense. It all starts to fall into line, saying, yeah, if the economy is less restricted, then the home builders would be benefiting from that. You would see their stock rising. Here it is. It's taken place. We don't notice it because we're the 80%. We're the 80% of people who have to put out the effort, the time, the energy, the dedication in order to make the thing happen, but we really don't get the benefit from it. We get to scratch by with our day jobs and make our monthly payments, and that's the most that we get out of it. That's why we don't feel it. That's why we don't notice it. That's why it feels hard and difficult and distant. But there's 20% of the people out there who are absolutely killing it, and they ain't slowing down. You have you have the rise in homelessness, and you have a rise in the consumption of the top 10, 20% of people at the same time. Think about that. The rise in homelessness, at the same time, the top 20% of people are increasing their consumption. This is an obvious wedge that is being driven right now. And all these people say, hey, man, what is it that we can do about it? And I'm thinking to myself, well, you can understand it for the reason that it's happening. And if you want to blame liberal politics or you want to blame greedy corporations for it, then you will never, ever, ever be able to understand the Cantillon Effect. To know that the new money that has poured into the system is what's driving the wedge. And ever increasing amounts of new money, new debt issuance, is going to continue to separate the rich from the poor. You're going to find even more homelessness, and you're going to find even more of the top 20% doing even more consumption. That's going to concentrate to the top, and the bottom is going to swell even bigger. The homeless is going to grow extensively the more that the rich continue to concentrate the wealth. Okay. And it's an unfortunate circumstances of how the system is not only designed, but then how the underlying economic forces fit into the current system and the way that it is conducted. I mean, the debt issuance, the constant debt issuance that has taken place, that's something that should never have occurred, right? You only have so much gold that's available. When the concentration of gold gets into the hands of a few, the redistribution of the wealth is an automatic equilibrium that takes place. But if you have ever increasing amounts of debt issuance, there is never a moment where equilibrium can be found, because the constant grabbing and concentrating of the wealth to the top percentage of people out there is a continuous action. Right? Constant debt issuance, constant new money, and constantly filtering up to the top. Right? If there was the gold system, if we were sitting on a limited currency system, the concentration of wealth would eventually reach a peak, and then a redistribution of that wealth would take place. They're called booms and bust cycles, business cycles, right? Cantillon described it very, very well in his essay, Cantillon's essay on economic theory. He describes that very well. But once you understand that there was no redistribution of wealth when you have continuous debt issuance taking place, there will never be a shrinking of the wedge. It will only increase. The inequality will only continue to get worse. And no, I don't care who you vote for or what decisions they make or taxes or anything else. It doesn't matter. The Canton Effect takes place with new money pouring into the system. And you can try to guide it, manage it, govern it, do all the other things that you want to do. It doesn't take away from the underlying economic force that is now going to separate the rich from the poor. That's the unfortunate consequence of it. Right? People, anytime somebody says the government should do something, you might as well just say that the government should create more inequality. Because there's nothing else they can do except for dump more new money into the system, which will continue to cause the inequality. A lot of people describe this in capitalism. Every empire has fallen. Yeah, but they blame capitalism for it, and that's the problem, right? Because it isn't blaming a capitalism, it's an underlying economic force. And then they try to say, well, if capitalism wasn't there, then we wouldn't have had this problem. No, you know what would happen? Is you'll have a boot on the face of humanity to prevent the people from moving into luxurious experiences in order to keep the money from flying overseas due to foreign production. So yeah, you know, you can stop it, like bad capitalism, good boot on the face of humanity. Which one do you want? Like, I'm not trying to blame you or anything like that. I'm just saying people who blame capitalism must want a boot on their face, right? A boot on the face of humanity to prevent it from taking place. Because that's what would need be. That's what you would need. You need to stop the people from moving into a luxurious experience. All right. They could tax. They already tax the rich. It doesn't work. All right. The markets are open to all of us. The abundance is there. It's up to us to get it. You are absolutely right, Joshua. I can never agree with you any more than that, you know, and me personally seeing that from a first-hand point of view, working at a lumber yard doing retail sales, I was able to start positioning myself within the understanding of the industry to make a profit from it. I shared it with you guys. I shared it the day I did it, and I did another video just the other day saying, man, you should pull your money off the table if you were ever going to do it. 47% gain in 30 days. That's incredible. That to me was awesome. I know it was off a 3 times leveraged ETF, but I don't care. I still pulled it off. Now, I haven't sold it, but I could sell that position today and take the profits. I think that there's still more room to go. But I told people, hey, man, there it was. There's your opportunity. Don't take it from just watching this video. Please do your own research on it, however it is that you're going to do it. But I showed it to you. I talked about it a year ago, right? And there it is, man. I mean, you can do it too from your own industries. That's where I'm kind of getting at, is that we have firsthand view of this stuff. I don't know if people realize that. Like, people are waiting for us to live our lives, do our work, so that they can read the data about it. Think about that. You got first real-time view of it, you know, if you could see it. I've done that 50 plus times on a variety of small cap stocks. Yeah, some people are pretty good at it. It would begin by banning Fed mortgage-backed security holdings. Bada bing, bada boom, brother. I've been telling you to trade for years. You did it right. Well, thank you, Joshua. Well, you know, the thing is, guys, I've been buying stocks and different things for a long time. Like, I mean, not a long time, but I mean, I'm doing it for a while. I don't generally come out here and talk about that. Like, that's not the channel that I put together here. I mean, I'm talking economics so that you can understand what's happening from the underlying economic forces. There are plenty of channels out there who talk about investing and how to invest and the reasons to invest in particular things. And although there's probably some really good information that comes from those guys, that's not what I'm trying to deliver here. I'm not trying to show you how it is that you can make money on stock trades. What I'm trying to show you is the underlying economic forces that are creating the situation we now face, so then you can use that information to benefit yourself. Let's go check out the super chat real quick. I just realized that I had one I forgot to go check out. All right, Yakuza Chris, thank you so much for the $4.99. Operation Twist is the answer. Sell 2.12 trillion mortgage-backed securities and buy treasury bonds. Executive order, Fed holding mortgage-backed securities. Fed has the tools but won't use them. If you sell the mortgage-backed securities, what you will do is you will dump out the price of the mortgage-backed securities, sending the yields very high. Mortgages will become very difficult for people to acquire. Now, on the flip side of that, you're saying go and buy the treasuries. Now, what this is going to do is, on the flip side of that, is begin to bring value or price increases to the treasury and start bringing those yields down. So now in the mind is if the yields come down on the treasuries, that should bleed into the broader economy, including the mortgage-backed security market. However, the dumping of the mortgage-backed securities while the Federal Reserve is doing that will drive the prices lower and the yields up during that time. The problem with this that I see is buying those treasuries, right? Because already the government is on an unsustainable debt path. And so what you're saying is like the Operation Twist of dumping the mortgage-backed securities and buying into the treasuries is going to put the government even closer to that unsustainable debt path, right? Like the Federal Reserve needs to figure out something else to buy other than treasuries in order to provide the liquidity to the world. The government needs to get responsible on how much government spending that they are doing, but ultimately they can't get responsible with it because they're the ones who are taking out the debt and spending it into the economy because 80% of the people are debt saturated. See, this is the unfortunate situation we are now in. There was a time when they could lower rates and you and me would go and borrow money and spend that into the economy, and then that would actually create the stimulus, right? But now debt saturation, right? Even if we were to borrow money, we can't really borrow enough of it to actually stimulate the economy. So the government's like, well, you know, if you guys can't do it, we're going to do it. We're going to borrow the money and we'll just literally hand it to you. We'll go into government stimulus programs, you know, projects, you know, building projects, whatever it is, and dump that money into the economy since you won't do it, right? That's the unfortunate situation we're now in. Like, they can't fix it. I mean, I guess, like, you know, there's an imaginary way of fixing it, but there's no real way of fixing this. The only way to really fix it is to understand why it's happening and to position yourself so you don't end up on the bottom side of the wedge. A lot of that really has to do with your luxurious experiences and what it is that you are finding important in your life. You know, like, I mean, a lot of people think that, no, I can't put money into Bitcoin. I can't put money into silver. I can't put money in the stock market, but I certainly can go blow $50 down at the bar. All right, well, you know, I made $150 purchases. I made $150 worth of purchases today. All right, of Bitcoin, of the stock market, of the different positions that I buy into. Why? Because I got paid. I got paid today. Okay, so I took $150 out of my paycheck and I bought stocks and I bought the position. And next time I get paid, I'm going to do it again because I always pay myself first. And sometimes I can do more than other times, and sometimes I might have to back off and say I can't do it this month. Okay? It does happen occasionally where I just, like, some other bills came up and I just can't afford to do it. But every single month I'm attempting to do that. Every single month. Okay? And I'll do that first, and then if I've done that, okay, well, maybe I'll go and hang out and shoot some pool. But you know, priorities. It's always about priorities first. And everybody has these priorities to say, man, I want to live a decent life. And then they go and they blast every possibility that they had to a decent life into the bar, into the beer, into the drugs, into whatever. Yes, this is not the 60s. We live in a new economy. Absolutely, we do. This is not, like, the sad part about it is that most people raise their kids based on how they were raised. My grandfather worked in the coal mine and my daddy worked in the coal mine and I'm going to work in the coal mine. You know how that whole thing goes, right? But when your grandfather worked in the coal mine, he could work that coal mine and actually take his paycheck and go and buy a piece of property and raise a family off of that, right? Your father did it, but then his wife had to do it too. She had to work and then contribute. Now you got the guy who's working the coal mine. His wife is also working a good, you know, steady job, and combine the two of them together, they still can't make it. And that's the unfortunate circumstances that we are now facing as the working class individual who had that dream, that American dream. It's not possible for him like that anymore because we do not live in the same economy. The Cantillon Effect, from when we were a production nation producing the world's greatest stuff, sending it out there to the world, and the world was sending us our gold, or their gold, We increased our standard of living because of that. It's super important to understand that being a production saving nation gave us the ability to have a high standard of living. This is not typical of most nations out there. We were in a very unique position being that manufacturing powerhouse and having the ability to distribute it to the world. And the world sent us their gold and we increased our standard of living. When we increased our standard of living, we started paying a higher price for all the goods and services and things that we were producing. There was foreign competition who says, hey man, you know, all those things that you're building right there that you've been selling out there to the world, and you know, you raised your standard of living and it's actually caused the prices of everything to move up. We build those same things and we can build it cheaper than you. Would you like some of our foreign production? And the people who had the new money said, absolutely we do. Right? They could have said, nah, we don't. But they said, yes, we do. We want your foreign production. And they started shipping the foreign production in, and the domestic manufacturers started to leave. That's the reason why your grandfather was able to build a house, have a house, raise a family, all on his income. But now that the foreign competition has come in and the domestic manufacturers have all left, you're sitting in a position going, why is my day job so difficult? All right? Understand why. That's why. Cantillon Effect is why. New money pouring in, separating the rich from the poor, driving out the domestic manufacturers, ever increasing amounts of foreign production coming in is the reason why your day job's not enough anymore. There's nothing that can be done to change that. Like, you can come up with artistic fantasies about tariffs and taxes and all kinds of stuff that's going to fix it. There's never been a situation in which that they have proven that to be the case, to work, without total collapse of the entire society and system. So anybody who says that you can reverse it is wrong. There's no evidence of that happening, ever, in the history of time. Certainly not to the level that the United States has taken the debt issuance. I mean, this is all brand new. People are like saying, oh, well, history has proven. No, history hasn't proven anything. History has no example of this. All right? Understanding the underlying economic forces is the only history that you can use, because there is no example of a 100% fiat currency for a world reserve currency to the level that we are experiencing today. This is all new. All right. What time is it? I gotta go. Yeah, I'm getting close here. I'm gonna have to call it quits. All right. Okay. Question is, how long will it take for the rest of society to realize this? They will never realize it. They will never, ever, ever realize it. In fact, most people will blame politics for the rest of their life. And the idea of it being politic or a political issue is what is communicated. Nobody communicates it from an underlying economic force. If you do not discover it for yourself, you'll never learn it. Because there's nothing out there on TV, there's nothing out there within the movies, within the TV shows, nothing to give you the suggestion of the underlying economic forces being the reason. Everything will be blamed on politics. And this is the reason why most people suffer in pain and misery. 80% of the people will suffer because they simply just want to blame politics for it, because that's the easiest way to understand it. 20% of the people have completely ignored it, understand that they have an ability to position themselves in which that they can get a return on their capital investment. Most, again, like it's all in the meaning and understanding that you have given it. Like, when I recognize the underlying economic forces that I have tried to share and provide, many examples and evidence of it, when I when I look at these things, I don't blame it on politics. I use politics as the symptom. Like, when politics is talking about particular things, that's the symptoms of the underlying economic forces that are at play. All right, learned something about gang saws yesterday. Very interesting. How cooling fluid oil my work company let the saw blade stay cooler and last for a whole shift. All right, how do we start side hustles when our main job sucks so much of our time? The retainer, I don't understand. I mean, are you literally working from like 16 hours a day? I don't understand. I mean, unless you're working, if you're working 16 hours a day at your job, you need to find another job, bro. Like, I understand that it can take a lot from you. If you're working your business, you got a construction business, and you're doing bids until the wee hours of the morning, right? That's your business, man. I mean, that is how it works. And I understand that people are like, man, this is tough. It's not easy to make it out there. You do realize that I am up studying, reading articles, doing things at 2 o'clock in the morning too for my channel here. It's pretty much a non-stop, constant pursuit. Always. In fact, when it comes time for downtime, like I have to commit myself to that. Don't look at your phone. Don't look at the emails. Don't look at the comments. Don't look at any of that stuff. Put the phone down, pick up the cue stick, play some pool, talk to people. Don't talk about economics. Right? I literally have to do that to myself. I have to force myself to downtime. Otherwise, it's a constant pursuit. I don't know how you get into that mindset, how you get into that thought process, but that's where I'm at. Right? All right, it's over. Nothing will be built but data centers and power lines for them. All right, for the right pay, I would work for 16 hours, just saying. You know, and that's just the thing. I wouldn't. There's not enough hours. I don't care how many hours, how much you pay me per hour. I wouldn't do it, right? I wouldn't spend 16 hours a day working for an hourly rate. I don't care how much the hourly rate is, because you're limited to 16 hours. That's all that you will ever make is 16 hours worth of income. Right? I mean, it might be a lot of income. Don't get me wrong. It might be a lot. Right? But that's not the position that I would take. See, I want to make money while I'm sleeping. I want to make money while I'm shooting pool. I want to make money when I'm doing things to try and make other money. I want to be making money constantly, and if I have to work in an hourly wage in order to do it, there is never going to be a time in which that I'm making money while I'm sleeping. That's the difference inside of it. You could double your income working 16 hours a day. You make twice as much money as me. I would be far happier working 8 hours a day and knowing that I'm trickling in money for the other 8 hours, even if it's not that much. Making money while I'm sleeping, while I'm doing other things. That's what I would be spending. Like, even if you're not getting a return on it immediately, that's what I would be working towards, because that's what I'm working towards, right? How to make money while you're asleep. If you can earn $1 while you were sleeping, you can earn 2. You can earn 4, and you can earn 8, and onward, right? I'm either going to turn on the hustle to max and set my life on the right path, or buy a house in the West Virginia and disappear so hard not to get blackpilled. All right. Chuckabod 95. Bond yields are still lower than at the start of the year. Oil is cheaper today than a year ago. Yeah, absolutely. Mama 88544, thank you so much for the $4.99. That's real talk. 16 hours, days a week. Yep. 16 hours, 7 days a week. Yeah. All right. Never mind. Your capitalism will fail with an attitude like that. Thanks, Mama. Thank you, All Nighter. Thank you, Brody, for being here. You guys are doing awesome, man. I really appreciate it. I'm confused. Aren't you an hourly worker? I am an hourly worker. I'm an hourly worker. I'm essentially a business owner. I work side hustles. I do whatever it is that I can in order to try and create some sort of revenue coming into to be in the flow. Like, that's it. Just understand it to be in the flow. 8 hours a day you're in flow when you're working your day job. But then you step out of the flow. Now you're not in the flow, right? So if I'm at work for 8 hours and I'm in the flow, and then there's sometimes during that 8 hours that the flow becomes quite extreme. Put out a video, get a lot of attention, the money starts flowing in because of the ad revenue. I'm in a lot of flow. How do you keep that flow, right? Because most people end up getting in the flow and then it flows right past them because they're in debt issuance, or they have a lot of debt issued. They took out a lot of debt. Right? So now this flow, they get this mass flow that comes to them, but then it zips right back out in mortgage payments, car payments, credit card payments, student loans payments, all these payments. That's not being in the flow. You're just standing in the flow, but you're not gathering any of it. How do you gather the flow? Get out of debt. As soon as you pay off the debt, you're an instantaneous gathering of the flow. The flow is now there and it's coming right to you. Right? People wonder, how is it that they do it? Right? It was just like, well, you got an 8 hour a day job, right? Take some of that, buy a dividend paying stock. Now although it's slow, it doesn't matter if it's fast or slow. The fact that you're in it, that's the important part, right? To get into the flow. You can always speed it up or slow it down later on, but to get in it is the important part. Take some of your paycheck, you buy a dividend paying stock. Now you got two forms of flow. You got your day job and you got that dividend paying stock. Even if it's just a tiny little bit of money that's coming in, it's still part of the flow, right? Take on a side hustle job, working weekends, doing, whatever it is out there, sweeping floors for some company or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Now you got three forms of flow, right? Build these things up over time. It doesn't have to happen in a single day. It doesn't have to happen in a single year. It's building brick by brick over time, building something that has the ability to benefit you over time, right? And that's it. It's just like there is no magic secret to it. It's discipline and a lot of time and hard work. That's it. And it doesn't even have to be that hard of work. It's just dedicated. For a lot of people, it might seem hard, but to other people, it's like it isn't that hard. It's just a matter of being committed to the outcome. All right. Lumber futures down 6% this month, currently trading at $610 per 1,000 board feet. Yeah, it is. And you think about it, like right now, you think about the price of lumber is down. The financial conditions are becoming less restricted. The opportunity for the builders are now starting to present themselves. You're seeing their stock rising. Like, it's just like all this time that we have been talking about mill curtailments, inventory shutdowns, permit issuance slowing down, new housing starts slowing down, right? All these things have kind of crested to the bottom. Like, could they drop even further? Absolutely they could. I mean, who can predict the future? I mean, anything could happen. When I think about the shifting tides, right? That's what I'm recognizing here. It's like, man, we have been in this for a while. And things seem to be changing a little bit here. Is this going to continue? Is this going to happen? Is this going to, all of a sudden turn into an expanding operation where it continues to increase more and more every single week, every single month? Who knows? I look at the charts and I'm thinking, wow, there was a couple of months that it was on the bottom, just kind of bouncing around the bottom, and all of a sudden, we had a nice little jump. Not only in the home builders, but in the demand for lumber from just my own, view from the lumber yard. And then I see like stocks moving up. I'm thinking, yeah, there's something happening here. I don't know quite what. All right, time will tell. But it certainly seems to me that the economy is far less restricted than anybody had ever given it any kind of credit for. I wonder who's been saying that over and over again. All right, when was the time to put my money where my mouth is? I did it last month. Here it is. It's proven out to be pretty good, right? Will that continue? I don't know. Will I get burned? Who knows? Maybe. I mean, it's a leveraged ETF stock, right? I know that my crypto is kicking butt. The Coinbase stock that I bought kicked butt. Everything else that I bought has done well, including the position I took in this leveraged ETF. Yeah? Everything I did has done well, right? And now, again, I'm not trying to brag it up. I just looked at it and said, okay, I feel that this is probably the low. It'd be a nice time to start dollar cost averaging in. That's it. That was my entire strategy. All right. I painted my entire house with a brush and roller. I made a relationship with cedar that keeps me dry and warm. I feel good about that. All right, dude is holding a leveraged ETF stock overnight. Uneducated Economist. Boom, right there. See, that's exactly the comment that I was looking for. This is how many people were laughing at me. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 laughing faces at me right now because I held a leveraged ETF stock overnight and I literally made 47% in 30 days. Now I haven't sold it yet. I could do it as soon as I end this video and take that money right off the table. This is the type of thing that I was exactly describing, right? These people laughing at me. The more they laughed at me, the more confidence I had to do it. I was absolutely, let's do it, man. You want to laugh at me and I'll laugh right back at you when I actually am successful at what I did. Boom. All right. June 11th. Go back and look at the video. All right. Everybody laughed at me. The comment section full of it. You're stupid. You don't know what you're doing. You're gonna burn. You're gonna lose so much money. Blah 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 blah. And I went down the line and I went, oh yeah, I'm totally doing this. I am so doing this. All right. And I'm glad. I love it when people tell me that. Dude, you're so uneducated in this stuff. And I'm like, okay. I'm laughing all the way to the bank. Right? I don't know what you're laughing at. I mean, you're laughing at somebody who made a terrible decision while I'm laughing all the way to the bank. Okay. Yeah, you go. You do you. Samuel already is dollar cost averaging into BC. Yep. Oh yeah, I've been dollar cost averaging into BTC for a while. How much is a sheet of T111 right now? If you're talking like the 18 patch or 6 patch or something like that, that stuff is really expensive. It's like up there around $80 a sheet. But you can get some of the shop T111, and we got a unit in not too long ago, which typically, like, I wouldn't suggest shop for the house, but most the time around here, T111 isn't really used much more on new construction or even residential. Most of the time T111 ends up being used in like the outbuildings or something. There was a time when it was a lot more popular and people did use it fairly frequently, but outside of like replacing sheets that are damaged or rotting away or something, for the most part, new construction in our area doesn't use T111. However, the shop T111, which is generally a lesser grade, it's, it got voids, it's got, maybe some delaminations. There's issues with it. That's why they call it shop grade. It's meant for outbuildings, barns, sheds, stuff like that. The last few units that we got in were really decent. Like, they were pretty good units. And so they were selling for around $35 a sheet. So it was like, pretty good. But yeah, the regular like 18 patch fur face T111 or something like that, that's running up around $80 a sheet, which is expensive, All right, what time is it? Oh, I gotta go, guys. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.